Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. Let's have some fun. So, one of my subscribers asked me if I saw this story in the Salon. Now, it's not just in the Salon, it's in other articles, but in this particular case, it was the Salon article that he linked me. Let's see if I can show it, just so everybody knows what we're talking about, because this is fucking amazing. Bernie betrays Democrats, announces re-election run as an independent. Now, what this boils down to is they got in their mind that Bernie Sanders was going to run as a Democrat in perpetuity in all future elections. Now, I don't know why this was mind-blowing to them, because immediately after the last election, he changed back into an independent. And they're taking issue with this. There are two problems with what they're taking issue with. A, he's never saying what they're accusing him of. That's the first point. They asked him, will you run in elections or in future elections as a Democrat? He said, yes. He didn't say he was going to run in each and every election that he was in. If it makes Matthew Rosa feel any better, in 2020 when he runs as a Democrat, he will run as a Democrat in that particular election again, if it makes you feel any better. But no. When he's representing the people of Vermont, he's going to represent them as an independent senator from Vermont, not as a goddamn Democrat. It's not going to be part of a burning fire or burning bus. I'm going to read the story first. You can already tell the tenor in which I am taking with regards to the story, because I find the story amazing. Bernie betrays Democrats, announces re-election run as an independent. That's my Batman voice, by the way. Somebody said it was a distortion. It's not a distortion. It's how I imagine in my head this is being written, because this is the most passive-aggressive shit that I've ever read in my life. It's amazing to read, and so I'm going to read it. I'm just going to read it as is. There is no excuse for the Democratic National Committee's efforts to undermine Senator Bernie Sanders in the 2016 presidential campaign. This doesn't mean, however, that the DNC was wrong for distrusting Sanders' sincerity when he claimed to be a Democrat. That statement is bizarre to me. Do you believe that being a Democrat is something other than some kind of legal fiction of sorts? Like, do you believe that there is some kind of mythical Democrat? This thing that's beating in the heart of a man, that he's just a Democrat, and he claims to be a Democrat. He's not a Democrat. What the hell are you talking about? He fulfilled all the obligations that was necessary to be part of the Democratic Party. What is your issue? What is your issue? What is your issue? The trust and the sincerity when he claimed to be a Democrat. When he ran in the 2016 primary, do you believe that the Democratic Party just so happened to allow him to run in the 2016 primary willy-nilly as he was considered to be an independent? Or do you believe he fulfilled the obligations necessary to be a Democrat? Whatever those things, whatever the Democratic Party set up as the necessities and requirements to be a Democrat, he fulfilled those obligations. It's not some kind of mythical thing. It's not something that's buried within the heart of a man. This stuff is insane. Those things are just legislative requirements or legal requirements. Well, I'm saying legal just from the standpoint of the party itself. That's fucking insane. The fact that Sanders has announced he will run for re-election in 2018 as an independent underscores that point. I don't know what the point is. I'm an independent and I've always run in Vermont as an independent while I caucus with the Democrats in the United States Senate. That's what I've been doing for a long time, and that's what I will continue to do. Sanders told Fox News reporter on Sunday during a trip to New Hampshire. By contrast, Sanders confirmed to a reporter in November 2015 that he was run as a Democrat in future elections after the subject was broached. In future elections, potential future elections, will you run as a Democrat? The reporter asked Sanders as he campaigned in New Hampshire. Sanders replied, yes. For the moment, before we budge off that point, let's actually go to the comment. Because they are reaching. Oh man, they're reaching. They are reaching. And this comes from a different place. It just comes from a place that can't be said. It can't be spoken. It can't be uttered aloud. They can't necessarily say it broad daylight, because it looks bad and embarrassing to say. The reporter, in future potential elections, will you run as a Democrat? Sanders, yes. Now, here's the thing. That doesn't necessarily mean that in each and every election that I run in perpetuity, I'm going to run as a Democrat. In future elections, potential elections, will you run as a Democrat? Now, Does that mean if he's running in 2020, would he run as a Democrat in 2020? Probably yes. Now, the reason I say this is the Democratic Party gamed the system in a way. Both parties did, but we're talking about Democrats. And they made the system difficult for third parties to get into the process, whether that was excluding people from debates, the way they control the voting apparatus in and of itself, excluding people from voting, and all this other stuff in primaries. You guys game the system in that way. It's difficult for a third party to get any traction in this country, let alone try to run for president or in other state or legislatures throughout the country. So he had to run as a Democrat. Like, the system was gamed in a way where you kind of forced him to run as a Democrat. Now, there is no mythical Democrat in a mountain that beats in the heart of a man. Ultimately, he fulfilled all the obligations necessary to run under the party. He's caucused with you for the entire time he's been in Congress. And beyond that, you guys full well expect his voters, under normal circumstances, people who would typically vote for Bernie Sanders, to vote Democrat. What I'm getting here is you have all of these expectations of people who are throughout the country to vote your particular way. He runs as a Democrat and you bitch and moan. The entire time he's running, oh, he's not a real Democrat, he's not a real Democrat, he's not a real Democrat. And now you're complaining that how dare he not run as a Democrat? How dare he not join our party? How dare he not join our party? We want him to join our party. Boo on you, man. You didn't join our party. He never said in every election he was going to run in, he was going to run as a Democrat. He never said that. You may have read that from the statement. Fair enough. I don't necessarily read that from the statement. In 2020, when he runs as the president of the United States, he will run as a Democrat. So if that makes you feel any better, Matthew, there you go. But his responsibility to the people of Vermont, he runs as an independent senator from Vermont. That's what he's always been. It would be a little bit unfair to the people of Vermont for him to also all of a sudden turn around and sully himself by adding himself to the Democratic roster. Yeah, I don't blame him. I don't blame him. Let's keep going, though. And I'm saying this is passive-aggressive because it starts off taking the perspective of somebody from the left. He's trying to curry favor. There is no excuse for the Democratic National Committee's effort to undermine Senator Bernie Sanders' 2016 campaign. I'm glad you agree with that. But then to turn around and say, well, blah, blah, blah. That doesn't necessarily mean that he should just pretend, not run as a Democrat. Bear in mind, one of the controversial DNC emails that was published by WikiLeaks showed former Chairman Deborah Wasserman-Schultz complaining that Sanders has never been a member of the Democratic Party and has no understanding of what we do. I have no idea what that means. I have no idea what that means. He caucuses with you guys for the entire time he was in Washington. That's fucking insane. He has never been a member of the Democratic Party. Does he have to be a member of the Democratic Party if he caucuses with you? He votes with you for the most part. He aligns himself with you. Even when you guys put out this ridiculous propaganda, he even toes the line with the ridiculous propaganda. What am I missing? What am I missing? Doesn't want to sully himself with your D. Get over it. I wish to repeat, there is nothing, absolutely nothing, that justifies the DNC giving any candidate an advantage over one over another. There is, on the other hand, ample justification for members of the Democratic Party establishment to regard Sanders with contempt for not being one of their own while trying to lead their party. I love that line. They shouldn't have cheated him. That's the first point he makes. But, and I love buts, because when people put in buts, that means that the thing that's coming behind it is going to somehow negate the thing that came before it. They shouldn't have cheated him, but there is ample justification for members of the Democratic Party to regard Sanders with contempt. They should have regarded him with contempt. They were fully justified in regarding him with contempt. Let me ask you this. If the people who vote on the left voted for the guy, if they wanted that guy, if that guy was beating in the polls and everything else, does it mean that you've lost a certain amount of claim to legitimacy with regards to being what your party represents? You act as if the Democratic Party is some kind of fixed edifice that has always been this kind of neoliberal market-driven solution to everything edifice. It hasn't always been that way. You're talking about something that's just in recent history, maybe 20-some years. If you're going back to what the philosophical basis of the Democratic Party is, that is Bernie Sanders. So this idea, this argument that he has no claim whatsoever to try to kind of change or pull the party back to what the party was supposed to be is insanity. It's insanity. Absolutely insanity. They should have contempt for him. What they had contempt with were the voters. That's what you're talking about. Bernie Sanders was just an avatar in the sense of what these people wanted and what these people weren't necessarily getting out of your party. They found it in him. He tried to fundamentally change your party. He tried to bring those people into that party under the banner of something different, meaning a new left. Your argument that it is okay, that it's justified for those people to have contempt is an amazing argument to make. No, they shouldn't have cheated him, but yes, it was perfectly okay and perfectly understandable that they had contempt for Bernie Sanders and his voters. Because that's what you're saying. That's what you're saying. Trying to lead that party. The reality is that Sanders has not been a registered Democrat until he decided to run for president. Although he has caucused with the party as a member of the United States Senate, he has long prided himself as being an independent. Yeah, okay. What's the issue? That is not only well and good, but necessary. As I've written before, America needs to create viable alternatives to the two major party system. The problem is when Sanders claimed that he switched to being a Democrat before seeking the party's presidential nomination, people became concerned that he was only doing so to improve his chances of winning the presidency. Yes, that's obvious. Yes. Yes. That wasn't a secret. That wasn't like, this was only spoken about in whispers. I think he's doing this because he wants to increase his chances. Yes. Yes. What's your issue? The Democratic Party and Republican Party have gamed the system in a way where you don't have a choice but to go through the party apparatus. Okay. Now, the party apparatus, two parties, your party continuously makes the claim that everybody on the left needs to vote Democrat. Okay. This guy, who's an independent, gets into your party. And the entire time he gets into your party, you say, how dare you get into my party? You're not a real Democrat, etc., etc. He becomes an independent, and you say, how dare you not become a Democrat? Come on. You can't have it both ways. You can't have it both ways. You can't have it both ways. Yes, he got into the party and the president into your party because he wanted to run for president. That's true. Flat fact. I don't think he would deny it. I don't think he would believe that a third party system run is viable. I do believe that he wanted to push the conversation to the left. And if he had the opportunity to win the presidency, fair enough. I don't think he thought that was the case. I think mostly he just wanted to push the conversation to the left. I take issue with this idea that there is some kind of, this Democrat that beats in the heart of the individual as opposed to it just actually being some kind of, party thing that a person needs to join and meet all the requirements for. It's fucking insane that he's saying it that way. Not a real Democrat. He was a real Democrat when he ran for the president. Now, your question is, or the question becomes, the people who are voting for Sanders, you consider those people to be naturally to the left anyway. Fair enough. Now, if those people didn't necessarily have a way to express themselves in a ballot box because the Democratic Party and the Republican Party gamed the system, what is their avatar to do? What are they to do? You want them to just vote Democrat kind of willy-nilly, even though the Democratic Party doesn't necessarily represent their interests. That's insane. Of course you're going to have somebody to come into the party to try to pull the party in a particular direction, particularly if you want those people to vote in your party. I just find this to be an amazing argument. Wag your finger at him because he's not a real Democrat, and then he becomes an independent, he's not going to run as a Democrat, and you're wagging your finger because he's not going to run as a Democrat. It's fucking amazing. There's a reason for this, by the way, but I want to get commentary. I want to go to some of the comments that some of the Democrats have been making on this because it's absolutely amazing to hear. Let's see if I can find it. Yeah. Let's go to some of the commentary because look, I am fascinated by the perspective here. That's all. I'm fascinated by the perspective. Yes, we cheated you in the primaries. No, we shouldn't have cheated you in the primaries. But it was right and understandable that there would be contempt because he was not, quote unquote, technically a Democrat, whatever that means, even though he was running as a Democrat. And even though he's caucused with Democrats for the past 20 years, he's not technically a Democrat, and he does understand our ways. And we don't like it that he's been bashing Democrats, and he's using us. One of them says, as his presidential Uber. As his presidential Uber. He's using our party. He's dogging our party, man. He doesn't understand us. Let's hear some of the comments.
Hey Hey Trent, you want some ice cream?
You don't want that shit.
Miss Sprinkle. No! You just... Sprinkle?
Silly punks. Batman owns the night. Now taste fear. You... Wait, what? Oh, God! Oh, my back just snapped like a pack of uncooked spaghetti! Oh, you just walk up and break my back without saying a word! Oh, boo! Boo on you, sir!
Oh, I love the last one. I love the last one. Boo on you, sir. Boo on you. Yes, we cheated you. Yes, we cheated you. But how dare you betray us in this way and not become a Democrat? Look, what Matthew doesn't really want to say, what the other Democrats doesn't really want to say, what their fundamental issue is, Bernie Sanders is the most popular politician in the country in spades. There was a recent poll that just came out in spades. Whether you're talking about African Americans, whether you're talking about Hispanics, whether you're talking about the working class, whether you're talking about labor, in spades. The Democratic Party is not. If the election was ran today between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton would still lose. They would fail again. What they understand, and part of this is the reason why Tom Perez was trying to rub himself in Bernie Sanders at every opportunity he could find. It's why Cory Booker was like, oh, I'm working with Bernie Sanders for the medical drug program. It's why Kamala Harris was, I'm for Medicare for all now. I'm for Medicare for all. I'm signing on to Bernie Sanders' plan. All of these guys were trying to rub themselves in Sanders. They wanted to leverage what Sanders was, his popularity, this idea of being leftist, progressive, being earnest, having a certain amount of integrity about the way he goes about his affairs. They wanted to leverage that for themselves. That's what was taking place. So this idea of putting Sanders as an outreach coordinator, Sanders is not a Democrat. Based on your argument, Sanders is not a Democrat. Why is he an outreach coordinator for the Democratic Party? Beyond that, if you look at Colin Powell, if you remember back during the Bush thing, nobody in the Bush administration had any level of credibility at all. None of those people were considered to be earnest or credible or honest or anything else. Colin Powell, however, was. Colin Powell had an 80% approval rating, when I remember correctly, when he was in office. During the time he was serving in the Bush administration, he was looked at as the voice of sanity in the Bush administration. They sent Colin Powell down to the UN because Colin Powell was the only one with a certain amount of integrity about himself, or the very least seen is to have a certain amount of integrity. And they used that credibility, they used that quote-unquote integrity to lie to the rest of the world. They wanted to leverage Sanders in a similar way. They want him to be a Democrat because they want to leverage what he is and bring that into the party itself. They want that to be party politics. That's the first point. The second point is a little bit more well, the first point is just this kind of basic, straightforward, this guy's immensely popular, we want to rub ourselves in what's popular. Just straightforward. That's the first point. He's an independent, we want him to be a Democrat, etc. The second point is a little bit more, what's the word I'm looking for? Is a little bit more grandiose, if that's the right word for it. For the longest time, the Democratic Party, for the most part, has been able to exclude third parties from the mix. Unless somebody had a massive amounts of cash where they could bring something up and everything else. You always had this issue of being crowded out by the two parties. The media organization, for the most part, falls in line with this and excludes third parties from debates and everything else. If you can't get on a debate stage, you're not going to have a certain amount of credibility. People are not crazy for getting stuck in this mindset of the two-party system. Yes, they should go to something else, but you always have this mythical other over your shoulder saying, I would vote for a third party if I thought other people will vote for a third party because I want my vote to count. That action works in all capacities. All of these people around the country wants the country to change. Nobody never necessarily takes that first step because they, I would take that first step, providing I had a bunch of other people to take the first step with me. The Harvey Weinstein thing. Man goes through his entire career abusing women left and right. Nobody takes the first step. The moment that the person takes the first step, other people start to come follow through. The problem that Democrats have with Sanders is that he is an independent. They're able to game the system with this idea of left and right, and these are the extremes between the left and the right within the United States, etc., etc. Well, it's not extremes if you have this third actor, this third thing that's out there that's essentially showing you up for what you are not. That's a problem. It makes you look bad. Have you ever seen these guys, the bodybuilding things? And when they're doing the championship, they were sort of moving around stage to get beside other people. Like there's a certain look that they want to have amongst themselves. If a Democrat is standing beside somebody who's batshit crazy, well, he looks kind of sane. If a Democrat is standing beside Bernie Sanders, he looks corrupt. He looks corrupt. Sanders, just standing there, not saying a word, just standing there, gets across everything that they are not. And that's a problem. You're not the definitive left in the party or in the country if you have something that's further left than you are that actually means what he says. That's a problem. He shows you to be full of it. That's a problem. You would prefer to have that to be inside the party itself. The last thing you want is to have this element outside of the party making the party look bad, making the party getting across that the party doesn't necessarily live up to its philosophical representational obligations of what it means to be a Democrat. The argument that they said Sanders wasn't a real Democrat, I would make the case that you guys aren't real Democrats. What it means to be philosophically to be a Democrat, you do not represent that interest. What we're talking about is classic Democrats. We're talking about Bernie Sanders. He makes you look bad. That's what this boils down to. This entire whining and crying and complaining. Boo on you, man. Boo on you, Bernie Sanders. Yes, we cheated you, and there's no reason that we should have cheated you. But boo on you, man. You should have fell in line and joined our party. A burning ship. It doesn't work that way. His obligations to Vermont supersede what you yourself want in that party. I don't blame him. I don't blame him at all. This article is just this kind of passive-aggressive, Bernie Sanders betrayed us. He betrayed us. You cheated the guy. You cheated him. Even in the article itself, you're consistently waxing and waning between they shouldn't have cheated him, but they should have cheated him, but the contempt was understandable. The contempt for him and his voters was understandable. Just because the DNC was wrong for rigging the primaries against Sanders doesn't mean Sanders is right today for not acting in good faith towards the Democratic Party. Think about that. Think about that line. Just because the DNC was wrong, just because they cheated him, doesn't mean that he's right for not joining the party that cheated him. So it's okay for the Democratic Party not to live up its obligations for people who are running in their elections. But it is bad for the person to essentially say, okay, I don't want to be a part of the apparatus that cheated me in this election. That's amazing. That's an amazing statement. We can cheat you, but it's wrong for you to do anything to not fall in line for us. Mind you, he didn't necessarily say he was going to run as a Democrat from Vermont. That's the second point. The entire article is based on a false premise. So, I'm amazed by this. I'm amazed by this. They are flailing in the wind, man. They are flailing. They're flailing. Like, yeah, they're flailing. This is getting pathetic. I would imagine, though, that if you're losing everything, and understand the context for this also. They're saying, we need you to be a Democrat at the exact same time they're purging people who are supporting Sanders or supporting Keith Ellis. That's amazing. That's amazing. Sorry we cheated you. I'm sorry we cheated you. There was no right for us to cheat you. We shouldn't have rigged the primaries. That's true. We shouldn't have rigged the primaries. But you should still be a Democrat. And I understand that we're expelling people who supported you. I understand we lied the entire time saying we're united, even though we have 15 million people who fled the party. Like people running a burning ship. Like rats fleeing a burning ship. We understand all that. All that's true. All that's true. But you still should have joined the Democratic Party. That's amazing. That's amazing. All right, let's see. Unfortunately, Sanders is on the leash. Democrat or not, can't be viewed as a vehicle for real change. Disagree, man, but okay. Garden is ox, but everything they do is working against them. If Here's the thing, Garden. If Sanders was on the leash, you wouldn't have these ridiculous articles like this. If Sanders was on the leash, he would have just joined the Democratic Party. Like, all of it doesn't fly. That's all. It doesn't. I'm looking at actions and behavior, and the actions and behavior doesn't necessarily fall in line with this thing of this guy's on a leash. It looked like they're angry and upset that you have this third entity out there who's showing them up. That's what it looks like to me. Every hate screed that you see from these guys on Twitter or Facebook, or news magazines, or Joy Reid or MSNBC, that doesn't sound like that's somebody who's kind of falling in line. It sounds like somebody who's a third entity that's challenging what the fundamental basis of the party is. I think they understand that. I think they understand the fact that they've lost all throughout the country. They've lost a certain amount of legitimacy. And then you have this other guy who's standing there, brimming, you know, in this kind of gold rays and golden light, saying, I am what you are not. The rest of the country agrees. He is what you are not. When you're looking at polling, he comes off smelling like a rose. The Democratic Party comes across horrid. So I feel you. I just disagree. Dimebag TV. The Democrats want Bernie to get into that pool of feces, but he won't do it. Yes, that's true. When push comes to shove, Sanders will fold. We've seen it. It depends. It depends. Garnome, you often like to say that you don't care what goes on in people's heads. That what takes place in reality is infinitely more important than what goes on in people's heads. To some degree, yes, but to some degree, no. Meaning what takes place in physical matter reality is a representation of what is going on in people's heads. Like, it's not the situation that this stuff just kind of pops out of, you know, nothingness. People have perspectives. Like, your view of the world is your workable point of view. It's like, what is the workable point of view I'm using to understand my world and my environment? Whether that be politics, whether that be my life, whether that be reality, or whatever else. If his point of view during the prior election was, I can't win, she is inevitable, if he full well believed that, then no, he's not going to necessarily do anything to actually try to win, because he didn't necessarily think he could win. Now, you have a candidate who's running with this idea of, I can win this election. I'm going to be cutthroat. I'm going to do what I need to do to win this election. I can win this election. That's a different animal. I'm just making this point that Sanders, when he first got into the election, did so to push the debate to the left, not to win. There's a difference in those things. There is a very different game that I'm playing if I'm playing the draw versus playing the win. It's just chess. If you and I are playing a game, I get in a particular position, I think that position is a draw, I no longer play for the win. Now, I know some people say, well, you should always play for the win. Playing for the win sometimes gets you to lose. It's a paradox. You need to necessarily know what you can push, meaning how far can I push this particular position? What can I squeeze out of this position to accomplish what I want to accomplish? But understand the basis of all this is, what do I believe? What do I believe? My beliefs could be wrong. My beliefs could be right. They could be somewhere in between. But my actions are directly related to what I believe. I don't think he thought he could win it. Now, this idea of him folding, if he believes that he can win it, meaning I believe I have a chance to win this, I am going to go balls out in order to win this particular contest, I think that's a different thing. That's all. I think it's a different thing. I don't think it's as flat fact as I think you think it is, where it's, oh, he's just going to fold when push comes to shove. You may fold when push comes to shove if you don't think you have a path forward. What does it look like when you believe, I am the person who should be winning this? I am the person who I believe to be inevitable. I have immense, amazing chances to win this. What does that look like? I think that's a fundamentally different person. That's all. Bernie never said he was a vehicle for real change. We have to be. If you're still depending on Bernie to save us, then you really weren't listening to Bernie Sanders. Winkle the Bernie bro. Agreed. It's not about a politician, man. People, Garnome jokes me. Some of the other people joke me because they think I hug Bernie too much. It's not hugging or otherwise. It's this thing of, I personally believe that anything that gets done from the standpoint of a people's movement. Now, you've heard me make this case before, saying I think Justice Democrat is somewhat misguided, because I think ultimately you need numbers. Putting candidates up the run as if candidates are going to somehow change the political apparatus, I think it's foolhardy. I don't think it works that way. I think you either have pitchforks or dollars. I think you need pitchforks. I think you need millions and millions and millions of pitchforks in unison. Whether you're talking about people to the right and to the left agreeing on very specific things, even if you just agree on the ground rules of we need a different voting system, we need to be able to get different candidates in, we need additional parties, we need fairness and honesty in our elections. That's first premise, I would argue. On the right and the left, I think both agree on that. There's certain things that the right and the left and independents agree on. I think you can find... You need to break the way the system is. That's my point. That's my point. That's what I'm getting at. For that, I don't think that's a politician. I think those are people. I think a politician could do it if he's primed, but he's only doing it from the standpoint of getting people involved in the political process. Every argument you've ever heard me make about Sanders was predicated on this idea that Sanders is browbeating other people in office and dragging the public into the debate itself, meaning all of those independents that don't vote, 50%, those people become politically active. That's my contention. I was always green, Winkle. Who said that? Who said that? Dax Jacobson. Gardno. DNC finances are secret. Only 2 people know where the money goes, where Bernie did not hand over the money he got. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you, Dax. Robert Pouquet Ray. DNC ignored the populist grief and act as if they don't know why they're having voting trouble. I know. That's amazing, right? That's amazing. We don't want to have any interrogation whatsoever in regards to the problems associated with us. It's her turn. Status quo forever. Status quo forever. And how dare you, sir, for becoming a Democrat in order to push the debate to the left, even though we full well expected the people who would have typically voted for you to vote for us. I'm trying to say that it's this idea of we expect your vote without your representation. And we're angry that Bernie Sanders got into the debate or got into the election itself. I find it to be amazing. I find it just to be an amazing position to take. We want your vote, but no, we don't want to represent your interests. We want you to just bow your heads and vote. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. Yapo Yappa, thank you. All I saw was a headline. Zox Avux, I will work against Bernie if he runs as a Democrat, and I'm not alone in this. Fair enough. Fair enough. Fair enough. On that one, I think we disagree. Here's my dilemma. Here's my dilemma. I believe that third parties should be cultivated. Full stop. You need something else to keep the other two in check. Full stop. The resources and all that stuff should be poured into that. By the same token, I do also believe that there are going to be certain Democratic candidates who do represent your interests, who take on the D because they just want to use the political apparatus itself. In those specific instances, yeah, I will vote for that specific person if I think that person represents my interests. That is difficult to do. Like what I mean is, that's difficult to pull off, and that's an amazing thing for me to say. I need to explain that. Like, it's a headwind. It's I don't know if the Democratic Party understands this. Like, I don't know if they get this on a guttural level. I think they believe this is still politics as usual, even though they've lost everything. I don't understand how you can lose as much and think you're still in politics as usual. It's a headwind. I don't like the party. I don't like what the party has become. And not just like what the party has become, they cheated one of the other candidates. That is a major fucking deal. Like, I don't understand why they think that's a trivial pursuit. They cheated one of the people in the primaries. Now, it's not just cheating the individual. They're also cheating all of the millions of people who put their hopes and energy behind getting that particular guy to the station that particular person was. It's not about just cheating Bernie Sanders. It's not about just losing the $220 million. Those people fundamentally want something different for their country. And you squash that. It is an amazing position to say, we understood that we cheated you. Get over it. Fall in line. That's just an amazing position. It's an amazing position. He even uses the word rigged. That's what I mean, passive aggressive. Things come across crazy when you can't necessarily just be honest. And this comes across slightly crazy to me. Yeah, I disagree with that, man. That's all. I disagree with that. If Sanders runs as a Democrat, I would vote for Bernie Sanders again. I have no qualms about it. Only because I think that if they're trying to change the Democratic apparatus, and they're failing miserably at it, And for the most part, they've been doubling down, expelling people who, for the most part, were representing Sanders or going for Ellison. You can break that. Like, Sanders winning breaks all of that. The video I showed with, you know, Batman getting his back broken by Bane, that's what takes place. Do you honestly believe that Sanders will put in Tom Perez to head the DNC? Do you believe that the things that he's going to be pushing for legislation-wise are going to somehow toe in this Democratic line? It's normal. I don't think so. I think in the same way that the Democrats who came in under Bill Clinton, the third way Democrats, took over the party apparatus. You're in this struggle to take over the party apparatus. Now, I would make the case that there are two things with this. Only vote for someone who represents your interests. Meaning, if they're going to put up milquetoast candidates, and that milquetoast candidate should lose. The weaker that party gets, the better of a chance you have of cannibalizing the elements of that party. Now, I struggle with this because there's a headwind voting for Democrat. And whether they realize it or not, whether they fully grasp that, how are you going to win when people you expect to be closer to your position are antagonistic towards you because of the things that you've done? How do you win? How do you win in that contest? When you have people like me, millions of us, who are like, oh man, yeah, I can't make that vote. I can't make that vote. He has a D beside his name. I can't make that vote. How do you win? How do you win? Your path of salvation was to embrace Sanders. That path was rebuked. So, if Sanders does run again in 2020, he would get my vote. If there's a chance of smashing that party apparatus and breaking that party apparatus, that would be it. That would be it. It's either somebody gets in that office that will fundamentally change the way they do business, or them failing to the point where they go extinct and something else can take over. I would prefer the former. I'm okay with the latter. Winkle, SMH, shaking my head. Robert Pouquet Ray, but the DNC would need superdelegates if they only are corporate votes instead of the popular vote. I think you're trying to say that they would need it if it was one of those things. Like if, but Deborah Wasserman-Schultz kind of made this point that the reason why they had superdelegates was to keep out grassroots activists. It was like, we don't want those grassroots guys. We don't want this popular uprising. Can't have anybody to do anything that would actually bring us to what it looked like to be an actual Democrat. Fuck that. Superdelegates. Winkle, you need to apologize. Apologize for what? What did he say? What did Winkle say? What did Winkle say? You guys are being belligerent to one another. Yeah, I don't know what Winkle said. Indie label lends Sanders credibility. It isn't until now that they demanded he change. Gardner, yeah, that's true. Bob Ramirez, I call this grooming the sheepdog, trying to make him look independent, like an undercover cop gets slapped around in front of the criminals. But why? Like, when I listen to a Republican, let's talk about spectrum. Let's talk about spectrum for the moment. And what I mean by spectrum is, there are certain things that you give credence to, meaning that somebody says them to you and your feelings, everything in you for the most part, accepts it. It enters your aura, it enters who you are, and you give it a certain amount of credibility. When Republicans talk, right off the bat, for the most part, I think they're lying to me. I think they're full of it until I find information to say they're either full of it or not. But my perspective of it is negative right off the bat. Comes into me, it's negative. It may change over time depending upon what takes place or what new information comes to light, but right off the bat, it's a negative. There's a headwind. Same thing with Democrats. There's a headwind. Now, I would wager that your perspective of Sanders is colored in a similar way, like this, meaning for whatever reason, you're off spectrum. I'm not saying it's good or bad to be off spectrum, just saying. But you got to be fair. Now, what I mean by that is, that's a harsh perspective to take without necessarily having anything to back that up. I think that's an emotional response. I could be wrong, but I think that's somewhat of an emotional response. I call this grooming the sheepdog. He's been an independent the entire time he's been in Congress. Why do you believe that they're quote-unquote grooming the sheepdog? You think that they're having a go at him just willy-nilly every so often just to kind of make it look as if they're antagonistic or they're at each other's throats in that way. I don't know why you think that. I don't know why you think that. The last conversation that Democrats want to have is about class. Nail that down. That's important. That's infinitely important. If Sanders is out here and he's screaming about plutocrats and class-based arguments, like literally using this language of class in order to attack both the parties, I would wager to you that that is not a conversation they want to have, and they damn sure don't necessarily want him having that conversation. I don't think this is grooming the sheepdog. I think Sanders has been the way Sanders has been for God knows how long. Now, as an individual, do you do certain things that other people may disagree with, that may contradict what other people see of you? Yes. You're not going to nail Sanders down as a, knowing what he is, because you don't know what anybody is. You have this idea of what he is based upon the information that comes in and everything else. But if you give him the benefit of the doubt that he is a human being, and as a human being, there's certain political pressures and everything else that act upon the human being. This idea that if Bob Ramirez was in the exact same position, Bob Ramirez will have this superhuman level of integrity and do something different. I'm doubtful, dude. Not because I think there's something wrong with you as failing as a human being, but because I think you're a human being. I think you respond to the pressures of your environment and you make the choices, or the best choices that you yourself believe. There may be other choices. There may be better choices. This goes into what you yourself believe are available to you. I don't think they're quote-unquote grooming the sheepdog. I do think it's a sheepdog. I do think he's trying to get people in the party. But I don't think he's doing it willy-nilly. I suspect he has something in mind. This kind of political gamesmanship of sorts. Yeah, it's slightly harsh. Slightly harsh. I just found that 2800 JFK files were released. You all may know that, but I just found out. Okay, back to the show. Yeah. I saw Trump was going to do that. Gardner, when I say sentiments don't matter, I'm referring to the way we as voters need to react to politics. We have no idea what they're thinking. We can only observe their actions. That's true. I agree. That part I agree with. I agree. Agreed. I do think, though, their actions kind of give this idea of what they're going to do. Like if I'm grabbing my keys in the morning, my dog pretty much thinks I'm leaving the house. Well, my actions lead, what my actions are doing gives this kind of idea of what my future actions are going to be. It even gives this thing of what's in my state of mind. Now, my dog doesn't necessarily put it together of he's going to get in his car, he's going to go to work, but the dog understands that I'm about to leave the house. He understands my state of mind. My state of mind is driving my behavior. I think it matters. I just don't think it's innocuous. Let's see. Sanders didn't hand his money to the DNC. Terry J123. I don't believe that at all. No, I don't believe that. I don't believe he handed his money over to the DNC. Sanders is the worst type of fraud. Juan 2. Okay, Juan, you need to explain that. Type that up. Jenny Lynn, one exclamation point. Dax Jacobson, Bernie paid them $10,000 for Unity Tour. I don't think he gave them much else. Yeah, this wasn't this thing where he just gave them $220 million. For whatever reason, he gave money for the Unity Tour. Bernie led people to Democrats because of Trump. Trouble took priority at that point. Yes, that's true. That's true. You gotta take care of your kids. What? Obscure reference. When we I told you when we played chess, we used to talk shit to each other a lot, particularly when we were playing Blitz. And, it's like, yeah, my wife laughs when she hears me playing Blitz and I'm like talking shit to the computer or something like that. But one of those things is you're making a move and the person is doing something that's like, you need to take care of your kids. You have kids at home. What they mean is you have responsibilities that you need to take care of. You have competing priorities. I understand you want to do X, but Y is going to lose you the game. From your standpoint, you believe that Y is far more important, meaning you need to do something to take care of the responsibilities associated with Y. Doesn't matter what you want to do. That takes priority. Trump firing Comey was a problem. They were going after his head for impeachment. The competing or the main priority, taking care of your kids, would have been to leave Comey to his own devices. I understand what Trump wants to do. What he wants to do is less important than them trying to take his head off. It's this idea of what's the most important thing in that particular moment that I myself need to be paying attention to. Now, going to state of mind, from Bernie Sanders' point of view, that was Trump. You can say he was wrong. Okay. You can say folded. Okay. But that was the state of mind. It wasn't this thing of, yeah, it wasn't like he was just colluding and sheepdogging us. In that specific instance, anyway. Your dog is probably at home more intelligent than some voters. James Wilkes. I have one that's pretty bright. The other one, not so much. Zock's word. Oh, yeah. John Crabbe, 67. What about the fact that Bernie asked Nader not to run in 96? Bernie has always had the Clintons back. I supported Bernie until I found this out. I still like the guy, but can't understand him. That's fair. That's fair. That's a fair point. Borg 48. I think Juan is calling Bernie a sneaky Jew. I hope not. No. Juan 2. Bernie covered up the fraudulent players. He's cleanup man. He's sneaky. Can't trust them. I don't know why you believe that. Yeah, I don't know why you believe that, Borg. Yeah, no, let's not do that. Like, it's one thing if he said Bernie Sanders was a sneaky Jew. That's not what he said. You're way adding shit into that part, that conversation. No, he didn't. Bernie wanted to pay his own way for the Unity Tour because he wanted to say whatever he wanted to say in his Unity Tour speeches. And that makes sense. Think about that. So, Democratic Party says, okay, we're going to pay your way for you to go state to state to state. Does paying his way to go from state to state in any ways curtail what he's about to say? If he's on tour as a quote-unquote, running for Democrats, are Democrats going to have some idea on, okay, we don't want you to say that? Paid his own way. I don't blame him. Don't blame him at all. Kevin, true, Bernie has deep ties to criminals like Clintons. Oh, Jesus Christ. Okay. Kevin, all Congress, 1, 2, Borg 48, you said it, he is sneaky. I don't know what his religion has to do with this. Nobody called him a Jew. Nobody said he was a quote-unquote sneaky Jew. That's insane. 1, 2, LOL. All Congress does... Almost, I don't know what that one means. I love me some Debbie. Yeah, I love Debbie too. She's awesome. I want to see you and Debbie debate this. Yeah, I had her on my show. I didn't want to delve too far into it. I would invite her on to debate this if she wanted to. I don't know what she would get out of it, to be honest. But I would invite her on to debate it. Yeah, I would invite Debbie on to debate this if she wanted to. If Bernie runs as a Democrat in 2020, I'll vote for him. I don't think he gave too much money to the Dems. He spent most of it. Yeah, I agree. J. Scott, Jamal needs to debate Sam. Who's Sam? You talking about Sam Cedar? Look, Sam Cedar, I saw his debate with Tim Black, and I saw his debate with Jimmy Dore. I think they were massively unprepared for that debate. What I mean is, Sam Cedar is not a stupid man. Like, just because you disagree with somebody doesn't mean they're stupid. Those debates... I give you an example. Tim Black goes on the Sam Cedar show, and it starts off, right off the bat, saying something like, hey, there's some guy who wants to talk to you or wants to debate you about something. Which looks bad. A, he's on the telephone line, so it makes him just look like some random caller. And so right off the bat, there's this kind of thing of, there's a certain dominance associated with the host of the show having a call-in person and having that conversation. That's the first point. So that's a hurdle you need to overcome. The second point is, whatever you're having that conversation about, you need to be damn sure of your position. Or at the very least, argue in a way that you're giving your position the best light. Let me put it that way. It is harder to have that debate before the election, because for the most part, you can just say, oh, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, the world is going to catch fire, Donald Trump is a goddamn maniac, etc., etc. It's easier to have debate after the election, because at that point, you have this kind of experiential reality. I can see what's taking place right now. It depends on what the debate is. But, yeah, it depends on what it is. But Sam Cedar's not going to debate me. He has like 150,000 subscribers or some ridiculous amount. Debbie would chew Mr. Thomas and spit him out in the first round, and she dropped the mic. No, that's funny. That's funny. 1, 2. Jenny Lynn, look how Sham treated Tim. Look how Sham treated Tim. I think you're saying Sam, but I think your joke is saying Sham. He's been going after Jimmy Dore also, by the way, which is fucking amazing. Like, I haven't watched the video yet, but he was in the debate with Jimmy Dore. Look, both has points. Don't get me wrong. Both in some of these debates, sometimes both people are right. That's the first point. So it depends on who's looking at the debate on whether or not they would agree with one side or the other. Let's bake that into the cake. But he's been going after Dore, like in some of the videos. It's fucking amazing. It's fucking amazing. I need to watch that video. I want to analyze the video. I want to see what he's talking about. Cedar is a hack just like Hackman. You talking about Bland Man Pac-Man? Yeah. He got mad that I called him Bland Man. That's funny. He responded on Twitter and then deleted the tweet right away. He attacked somebody, and I was kind of making this point like, what the fuck are you talking about? This attack is insane. It's baseless. And then I was joking. I was calling him Bland Man Pac-Man, and he didn't like the Bland Man thing. He thought the Bland Man thing was over the pill. Sam Cedar wouldn't debate Jamal. He is too snobbish. Yeah, he wouldn't debate me. I don't have enough subscribers for that debate, and he would lose that debate. By the way, he would fucking lose that debate. Him, Bill Maher, all of them would lose that debate. Now, Debbie is different. Debbie is different. Yeah, Debbie is different. And let me explain what I mean by this. Debbie and I are very similar in how we fall on a lot of stuff. I've always made the point that Debbie's morals are higher than mine or better than mine. And I believe in that. So, it's Deep Space Nine. I'm a Starfleet officer. And the Federation is losing the war. And as the Federation is losing this war, what am I going to do? I have my integrity. I have my honor as a Starfleet officer. I am spit and polish, and I am, the paragon of virtue. I am a Starfleet officer. I can retain that paragon of virtue and lose that war. Or I can leverage my credibility. I can leverage my integrity. I can put that spit and polish to the side for the moment and do something that's pretty damn immoral in order to win the war. Would I do it? Yes. Would Debbie do it? Maybe not. We have differences on this. Now, the problem is, I agree with her in the sense of, I agree that her morals are better. And I would even agree in some of the arguments that she would probably make. I'm saying this poorly. All I mean is, it's like when you're having a debate and when you're having a debate and you agree with a lot of what the person is saying, it becomes difficult to have that debate. It's like you're making a good point. I agree with you, but. And when you're in a debate where most of the stuff is kind of but, it just depends on the person who's looking at the conversation. I don't want to debate Debbie. I gotta be honest. I like her too much to debate Debbie. I don't want to debate her. Scorecard. Debbie beats Jamal. Jamal beats Sam. Sam beats Bill. I'm not saying she would win that debate. I'm just saying I don't want to do it. There's a difference in those things. I don't want to feel like it's competitive. When I feel like it's competitive, it's not about the topic at that point is about winning. And I don't want to be there. Debbie is a fundamentalist, and I love her for that. Yeah, I agree. Debbie has strength of her convictions. Yeah, I agree. But this is why I like her. Like, I may disagree with her on some stuff. Doesn't change one iota me thinking she's fucking awesome. I used to make this thing saying she could be in a forest screaming at the top of her lungs about something and be there by herself, and she would still do it. And there's a certain amount, you need that you need it, even if it's one of those things of like, okay, I think she's in the boonies on this one. Doesn't matter. You need people like that who take a fundamental position based on this idea of integrity. This is what's true. This is what's honest. This is what I believe the world to be. Yeah, you need it. You need it. She's fucking awesome. Once Debbie started screaming at him, Jamal would curl up in a ball and weep. He would ditch his pick of Sanders. Gardner. I know he's joking. I don't think she'd scream. I don't think she'd do that. Sorry, dude, you would lose. You must debate her. However, you would also beat Bill. I don't think I would lose that debate. Like, it depends on what the debate is. What's the debate topic? What's the debate topic you believe I would lose, Gardner? What's the debate topic? He's piqued my interest now. Civil disobedience. I know. Thank you, though. John Crab 67. Debbie doesn't scream. It's just tough love. Debbie does scream, by the way. I've seen Debbie flip out. I've said before that woman could be terrified. She's awesome. Me too. Debbie is my fave. Yeah, she's a trip. Yeah, you can debate, discuss. We've talked about the Sanders thing. I disagree with her that I don't think he's a plant. I just don't think he's a plant. I don't think you have this class-based argument for a guy and have that guy to be a plant. I think it's you're getting too close to home. Like, you're hitting too close at the underpinnings of the party itself and the problems with the party to have that class-based argument and have that guy to, be this kind of controlled opposition. Should we support Sanders if he runs in 2020? Oh, that's a good topic. I would have that debate. Yeah, I would have that debate. That's a good topic. That's a really good topic. I've seen too much fucking Star Trek, Kevin. No such thing as seeing too much fucking Star Trek. Civil disobedience. I wouldn't imagine Debbie is a good debater. Why not? She usually, has her information on point. It's not one of those things where she, No. I think she'd be fine. I don't know if she debates, though. Like, I don't know if, I don't think I've seen her do that. Debbie seems to be somewhat of a lone wolf. There seems to be certain people who she would interact with in that way, but I've never seen her actually debate anybody in that way. Looking at just a raw debate. I adore Debbie's passion. She's yelling for a lot of us. Yes, I agree, Jen. I agree. Gardner, make it happen. I don't have the power to just quote unquote make that happen. Hey, you. Hi. Debbie and Jamal have talked before. She would take it easy on him. Debbie never said Bernie was a plant. By the way. She would take it easy on me. What do you guys think? I'm a dandelion? Mercedes Cali. Can you name the barriers to Sanders running for president as an independent? Yes. So, one of the big ones is media. Think back to the 40s, FDR. And FDR has William Wallace, he's the start of progressivism in the United States. Flaming lefty. Like he walks into a room and the room catches a blaze. That's how far to the left William Wallace was. Now, FDR had him as his vice president. He should have been the vice president when FDR died, but there were shenanigans that the Democratic Party involved in order to put Truman in that slot. So when FDR died, Truman took office. Wallace, as popular as he was, ran as a third party, and nobody knew who he was. It was like he was a blip on the radar. Now, there's two reasons for this. I've said before, this kind of esoteric other, the mythical other that sits on your shoulder. So you would say, I would vote for a third party if I knew other people were voting for this third party. That's a problem, because people want their vote to count. They're not insane on this point. They say to themselves, I want my vote to be part of the process. What's my least worst option? I have 3-4 candidates. These two candidates is what everyone else is going to vote for. I would vote for this person if the other voted for this person. If I knew that there was a certain number of people who would vote for this person, I would vote for this person. I want my vote to count. Now, they're not crazy for that. They're looking at their options and they're saying, what's my least worst option? That's how they function. Now, that's a problem right off the bat. Meaning, your vote for third party to some degree counts against you. So people have a disincentive to vote for third parties in that way, unless they're just really against the two-party system. The other thing is media. The entirety of your life in the United States, you're told there are only two parties: Democrat and Republican, Democrat and Republican, Democrat and Republican, Democrat and Republican. That's it. Those are the range of debates. That's all there is. Once you got to the point where media started to exclude third-party candidates, how do you get your point across? How do you even look compared to the other candidates from an optics standpoint? Well, you can't even get on the stage with the other candidates. You're scrubbed out of the process. Not to mention ballot access, getting up and running in each and every state, all these things are hindrances to third parties. It's problematic. It's problematic. Doesn't mean it can't be done. Everybody says something can't be done until it's actually done. But acknowledge the difficulties involved. It's part of the reason why I go with this idea of a two-pronged approach. This thing of, I will vote for somebody who I believe represent my interests, but I would not, with capital N-O, vote for anyone that does not. If I am left with the option of a weak Democrat and a Republican, I would write myself in or write somebody else in. I am no longer voting for that party in that way. Meaning, where do you draw the line? Before anything gets done, before you make a decision on doing anything else, you start at a fundamental step of, no, we're not continuing in this way. You're not going to get my vote as if it's this kind of perfunctory thing. No. No. Don't have anything else yet. I will find something. But right off the bat, that answer is no. You're not getting my vote. I think that is a fundamental level, and I could be wrong on this. I'm a fallible human being. But that just seems to be strategically right, and I would even argue strategically necessary. If there is no consequence for the actions of somebody, meaning this person can do whatever they want without any particular consequence because they believe they have you by the short and curlies, what is your recourse? What is your recourse? Your recourse is to annihilate that idea that they think they have you by the short and curlies. If that means they need to rip those hairs out, then they need to rip those hairs out. If that means that shit's going to hurt for a while, that shit's going to hurt for a while. But the alternative is that you're always in the situation of being stuck with people who, for the most part, don't care about your interests. First step is no. First step is no. Either you cannibalize that party, meaning they fail to the degree that they can no longer maintain the party apparatus and they can be taken over, or that changes. I'm okay with either. I'm okay with either. James Wilkinson, I understand that to be no to what? I understand that to be no to the DNC, yes. Oh, to Democrats in general, man. They purged all these Bernie-crats. They went. Let's take a short walk back. And these things always go long because I'm talking to the goddamn audience, and I enjoy talking to the audience. Put it in context. Put it in context. If the Democratic Party was your boyfriend, girlfriend, or whatever else, you would have left them a long time ago. You would have flattened their tires. You would have cut off every light in the house as you walked out the door to be dickish, and you would have left. What's Liana La Havas? She says, "I'm not lonely. I'm all right." That kind of needs to be the premise. I am not lonely. I am okay. I can do without you. It's not that I like it. It's not that I like Republicans getting in office. No. It's that you are not necessarily going to fully leverage the fact that they're batshit crazy to make my vote perfunctory. Right there. That's it. You're holding them accountable. I understand that these people are batshit crazy. What does that have to do with you? They need to be held accountable. Otherwise, nothing takes place. Otherwise, the party moves further and further to the right. And I'd even make the case that not just move further and further to the right, they continue to lose. They will continue to lose. Bernie Sanders registered as a Democrat. He ran as a Democrat. He fell in line as a Democrat and tried to sheepdog people into the party to vote for Hillary Clinton. All those things took place. Beyond all those things taking place, they shafted and cheated the guy and rigged the primaries. They shut up his supporters when his supporters were trying to speak and everything else at the primaries. The WikiLeaks document showed them browbeating and attacking people who didn't necessarily fall in line to support Hillary Clinton, meaning sending letters, dirty letters to other Democrats like Tulsi Gabbard. This is the things that they were doing. They were going against their own bylaws. Even at the thing with electing or choosing Perez over Ellis, they went against their own bylaws to do it. In court, we can cheat when we want to cheat. We can choose people in back rooms if we want to with the Democratic Party. At the exact same token, screaming to every mic that they can find all across the United States that we are united. We're united. We're united. All of this talk about there being a division is baloney. We're united. Now, everybody looked at that and knew they were lying through their teeth, and yet they persisted in that particular lie. 15 million people left that party like it was a burning ship. And yet, they continued to say we're united. They then turn around and say, we're going to have a unity commission. We're going to have a unity commission. At no point could they admit the fact that they rigged the primaries. At no point could they have an honest conversation about why they lost so much, how they lost the House, Senate, Supreme Court, how they lost over 1,100 seats all throughout the United States. Never took place. Never took place. We're united. Anybody who's saying to the otherwise is insane. Who are you going to believe, the Democratic Party or your lying goddamn eyes? Immediately when the eyes faded away, the purges. Oh, the purges. We're going to put in our corporatists and our lobbyists and our hillbots, and we're going to get rid of the people who are supporting Bernie and who are backing Ellison. We're going to double down. Why is this the party you want to support? And what in this, what in all of this behavior gets across to you that this is a party that's worthy of getting your support? And if you're willing to support the party after doing all of this, what does it matter? Your vote becomes this kind of worthless thing that you're just willing to give away. It is not a quid pro quo. When the rich give their vote to Republicans, they're doing it because they're getting something back in return. What about you? What about you as a lefty? What are you getting back in return for your vote for the Democratic Party? And do you believe that the money that they're taking, the $1 billion that you got, the thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars that these guys get, in no way changes the tenor of the way they govern? Why are you voting for that? That's what I'm getting at. Why are you voting for that? Start with a fundamental basis of no. J. Scott, Jenny, don't spaz out. Gardnome, quick fucking up and you might get promoted. Dude, I don't know what that means. Get to the Van Winkle? What? I understand that there's... Yeah, I don't know what that means. Party unity, my ass. Pumas. Yeah, that was during Clinton's time. You know what's wild about that? They browbeat Bernie Sanders and all this other stuff, or his supporters. There were more Clinton supporters that didn't vote for Obama than Sanders supporters that didn't vote for Hillary Clinton. Meaning a large number of Bernie supporters fell in line. They voted. They were terrified of Donald Trump. The propaganda worked. I don't think all of it was propaganda. Some of it was, but it worked. Mission accomplished. You got a huge number of Bernie Sanders supporters that vote for you. There were more of those voters that voted for you under Sanders than of Clinton supporters that voted for Obama. That's amazing. That's amazing. That is absolutely amazing. John Crab 67. Jamal, would you sign a private agreement with your opponent that none of your supporters would know about until the race was over? See, I don't know what the agreement was, though. I don't know what the agreement was. Like, for all I know, the agreement is I won't necessarily do anything that would make you lose the election, mainly because I think I'm going to lose myself. I don't know what the agreement was. Now, if we find out later on that that agreement was, I in no way intend to try to win this election, then yeah, then you're right. Then you're right. He was a sheepdog. He was controlled opposition. But I don't know what it was. Bob Romero says, Sanders says bow down and some people will prostrate themselves. Ooh. Ooh. Juan 2, I don't fall in line. I think for myself. You go on. Robert Bouquet, maybe my definition's off, Jenny. That's the thing about words. They mean different things to different people. That's the problem with words. Yes, they're subjective. HRC broke the record for ads containing no information and filled with platitudes. That's Kevin. All of her speeches were that way. I couldn't listen to her speeches. Like, I tried to give Hillary Clinton the benefit of the doubt. I tried. I was terrified of Donald Trump. And I did my best. I tried. I couldn't do it. Like, you would hear a speech, and the entirety of the speech was just one platitude after the next. And I sat there like, the public knows this is full of it. Like certainly the public has to understand or see through this. I couldn't tell. She lost the election, so I'm assuming they did. Civil disobedience. Remember her bringing up RFK? Yeah, that was low. Saying Robert Kennedy got shot, so she wants to stay in the race just in case Obama gets axed. Jamal, don't you remember Hillary saying to Bernie during the debates that she knew what was going on? You're trying to win this, aren't you? That said everything. Zoc Ox. Jamal, don't you remember Hillary saying to Bernie during one of the debates that she knew what was going on, that you were trying to win this? I don't remember that specific line. What was going on? Look, I do remember there was a few things that was odd during the debates. So, do you remember the New York debate? Bernie Sanders went after her ass. Like, he says, there was this famous line where he was like, the Wall Street people call me dangerous. Well, they're right. Like, and the audience was going bonkers. Like, it was one of those things where it was a beautiful debate. It's a debate that you expect from a Republican and a Democratic candidate. That's what made it beautiful. It's like the actual election in the United States, meaning a sane Republican and a classic Democrat was in the Democratic primaries. She, in more than one occasion, made this argument of, I fell in line when I lost Obama. Your supporters need to fall in line and vote for me. She made that pitch over and over again. Which is an amazing pitch because nobody owes you their vote. You falling in line to support Obama, okay, but that doesn't necessarily automatically give Obama all of your votes. Those people make a choice on who they want to support. They support him or they don't. This idea that people owed you is probably why you lost. Genuinely, not all words are subjective, they have definitions. Fair enough. Political system has long been a shell game. Let me say, well, is that true? All words are not subjective. Some have definitions. So a car, I know what a car is, but there are millions of different types of cars. As a human being, you have the capacity to look at one shape or one image or one idea and have that idea to be expressed in multiple different ways, and you still see it as the same thing. So I can say that a baseball is a baseball, but there could be different configurations of that baseball. That word is still subjective. Give me a word that you believe is not subjective. Yeah, give me a word that you believe is not subjective. Borg 48. You really shouldn't. Where is it? Those platitudes were for public positions. Yeah, that's true. Hey you. Oh, that's the name. That's his name. Hey you. Hi, I'm just reading these comments. Haven't been here in a day, but it's interesting. Just the facts, man. I love that. I don't carry an Oxford dictionary around. Most people don't. Zox Avux. She said it on live TV at the start of one of the debates. It was brimming with arrogance. Just brimming with it. It was coming across her like a fucking superpower. Like, you know, sometimes in comic books, you would have the comic book character standing there, there would be rays coming off of them. That's how her arrogance was coming across. It was amazing. I don't like being told what to do, man. I don't like being told what to do. So, if you're telling me that I somehow owe you my vote, that Donald Trump is a goddamn maniac and he's a gun to the head of America and that you must vote for me, I don't like being told what to do, particularly when I feel that you cheated me in some way, that I was wronged in some way. I don't respond well to that. Now, neither did the people in Britain for Brexit. Neither did the Catalonians in Spain. You have this stuff going all across the world. This is our own little personal war, at the very least from a political standpoint. But she lost. She lost. Juan, I'd love to hear which countries you are considering. She meant, how dare you break out contract, Zach, but I don't know what the contract is. If you tell me what the contract is, we can have this conversation. I don't know what it is. There was a WikiLeaks document where she summed to the effect of, I'm going to contact Sanders because this is a breach of what we agreed upon. So fair enough. But I don't know what they agreed upon. Like, I'm at this thing of, I don't know what it was. I don't know what it was. Winky the Bernie Bro. Gulf of Tonkin false flag to allow the United States to war in Vietnam. Syria gas attacks false flag to try to allow the United States troops to topple Assad. Yes, agreed. I don't know what it has to do with our context, but yes, agreed. Civil disobedience. I don't remember that line. Which debate? James Wilkinson. F Society Wall Street. I think he's trying to say fuck Society Wall Street. Zach Ox. You know you can't win. Oh. Well, I don't think he believed he could win. Jamal, did you see the interview with Hillary with a BBC reporter? You got to see it in YouTube. Hillary Clinton on Weinstein, Trump's threat to the world peace and losing. I will look that up. I don't typically look for Hillary Clinton debates. Hillary Clinton conversations. Fair enough, but I will look that up. I will look that up. They asked, I do remember they asked her about the Uranium One deal, and she was like, "Oh, that's baloney, man. That's been debunked." Debunked by who? Debunked by who? The Hill came out with this article talking about you were getting your palms greased, and the best you can say has been debunked. Not so much. Those Senate investigations, or those investigations that they're having in Congress, you do not have the benefit of a Democratic president protecting your ass. So be careful what you say at this point. Regarding post-mortem ideas regarding language should be taken with a grain of salt. Don't know the context, but okay. Bob Ramirez, maybe we should go back to gestures and grunts. No, language does have a point. It's just that it can be subjective. It's like, it's a nice day. What does that mean? Now, it means it's a nice day to me. What does it mean to you? Maybe it's too hot for you. Maybe it's too cold for you. What's the context? There's certain things that you can line up with the physical environment. I am 6'1", okay, but that's 6'1" depending upon the scale that you're using. Meaning, depending upon the variations in the device and the measuring device itself, you may get a change in that particular measurement. So yes, I have a measurement. Do we know exactly what that measurement is? Typically we say it's 6'1", but that's just, what we go by. There's subjectivity in somewhat everything around us. Science tries to weed that out, but for the most part, our language is immensely subjective. It's subjective. I'm trying to think. Part of me feels like nothing is always, which is a paradox. I say that there has to be something that's not subjective in regards to language, but this is somewhat of a philosophical discussion on subjectivity, language, and what that stuff means. Same interview. Oh, it is. Okay, I'll check it out. I saw the BBC interview. Get ready to punch your... Oh, man. God. Jesus Christ. If you guys was with me when I first started this, I would analyze videos, like interviews. And some of those interviews, man, I'm screaming at the monitor. Like, the Donna Brazil interview with Trevor Noah is the most aggravating interview I think I've ever seen in my life. And you talk about Debbie B yelling. Yeah, I was losing my shit in that interview. Language is subjective, but if we take this idea too far, it becomes useless as a tool. Yeah, agreed. There's dead men, living women. It's subjective. There's dead men. Yeah, but when dead men, are you mean dead from the standpoint of a physical death, or dead from the standpoint of just not being able to articulate their life? Like, what? This is what I mean when I say language is subjective. If I was writing something, say I was writing poetry or something, I can make a statement of something that sounds this kind of Alice in Wonderland thing that you could look at and you could full well understand what I meant, even though what I said was somewhat of a paradox. Our world, our reality is shaped with these paradoxes, these just different points of view that intersect with one another. It is not necessarily the easiest thing in the world to use language to get something across. And unfortunately, language is a great tool if you want to lie and obfuscate. You got to define your terms. Like, as a politician, it hurts you to define your terms. I would argue, as progressives and leftists, you should define your terms. You should be extraordinarily clear what you're trying to accomplish and what you want people to understand. Yeah. I heard some of that interview on Secular Talk, I think. The interviewer actually pushed back against Hillary's BS. It was fantastic how journalists should be. It's Britain. Britain is different. Britain is different. Those guys are don't get me wrong, they still have their biases. They're still corporatists and everything else. But British politics can be brutal, man. Some of the shit they say to each other would never fly in the United States. One of the candidates during Prime Minister questions gets up and attacks Theresa May. And he says, the screeching banshee, something to that effect. Like, he opens his statement up, calling her like the screeching something or another. It's funny, but it is brutal. Like, you're using this in political discourse. It's politics. Like, I get another example. David Cameron. So in Prime Minister Questions, David Cameron, I don't know if anybody watched Prime Minister Questions. This is my own little fascination with foreign politics. Cameron used to go against Tony Blair. Whatever you want to say about Tony Blair, and Tony Blair's ass should be in prison. Tony Blair was amazing at Prime Minister Questions. He was fucking phenomenal at it. And he would eat Cameron for lunch. Day and a day and a day and a day and a day, and each one after the next, he would eat him for lunch. like brutal, like the brutality of a man to another man in front of, you know, an audience. Blair leaves in disgrace. Eventually, Corbyn takes over. Now, Corbyn is going against Cameron, who for the most part has been forged in the fires of Tony Blair. And Cameron was pretty good at Prime Minister questions, even though a lot of the stuff he was saying was full of shit. It's full of shit. Cameron goes on to an interview. By the way, Theresa May is not good at Prime Minister questions. Jeremy Corbyn eats her alive over and over and over and over again. And the language and the debate that they use, he uses a class-based argument. They have a hard time dealing with a class-based argument. Now, they try to make this point of, well, if you need a strong Britain, then you need a strong economic sector and all this other stuff. That may be true, but what does that have to do with the price of tea in China? You act as if those things are mutually exclusive from one another. They're not. You try to take the country in a particular direction. He's trying to pull it back from the brink. And he's had to fight and beat the Blairites in the same way that progressives are trying to cannibalize the Clintonites. This is just our struggle. But this struggle is going on across the world. When Cameron went on to, I can't think of the guy's name. Oh, I can't think of the guy's name, but he's an interviewer. And Brits have an arrogance about him that I love. Like, under normal circumstances, I don't necessarily like this thing of being arrogant. But Brits, it comes across them in waves. And I don't necessarily think they try to do it. I think it's somewhat the accent. From America's standpoint, it's the accent. It comes across as this kind of, this high acidity, this kind of, slightly snobbish and everything else. Not necessarily that they are. It just comes across that way. It's the accent. But he's sitting in his chair. He has Prime Minister David Cameron sitting across from him. And he's leaning back. And he's like looking down through his glasses. It's an amazing scene. He's awesome. With his legs crossed. And he asks him a very basic question. How many food banks were there in Britain before you took office? And how many food banks are there now? Cameron responded and didn't answer his question. And he asked the question again. How many food banks are there in Britain before you took office? And how many are there now? Cameron says something else. He asked the question again. How many food banks are there in Britain? If we need to have we need to spend this 30 minutes having this one question, you're going to answer this question. And the question was damning. Because he's making the point that regardless of what you say you're trying to accomplish as Prime Minister, poverty has spiked. And one of the indicators of poverty is that people don't necessarily have the resources to buy the food that they need. Meaning they need to go to food banks. That's under your Prime Ministership. That's a damning question. That's a fucking awesome question. And that was an amazing interview. That's Britain. You don't really see that in America, like talking about. Like what people get is these great interviews are just buffoonery from candidates. So you have Sarah Palin not being able to answer what magazine she reads. And people are like, oh my God, that was a trick question. Trick question, she asks, what magazine do you read? That's not necessarily a definitively powerful interview. Well, this is insane. It doesn't necessarily mean that British press doesn't have its bias. They attacked Jeremy Corbyn like their life depended on it, because to some degree their life probably did depend on it. Their political life, or their financial life anyway. But they went after him balls out, so don't get me wrong. It's not like they love Corbyn. But they can be pit bulls. They can be absolute pit bulls. Let's see, Jenny is up to 6%. Jay Scott, I don't know what that means. Cronkite was well before my time, but there are plenty of YouTube videos that show how much better journalism in this country used to be. Agreed. When what's his name went after McCarthyism, when what's his name went after the Vietnam War, I think it was Cronkite went after the Vietnam War. Yeah, journalism used to be different, man. Richard Nixon comes into office saying, I have a secret plan to win the war. I have a secret plan to win the war. Trust me. Trust me. He gets in office not telling anybody that his secret plan was just more bombing. That was the secret plan. We're going to do more bombing. There is this awesome interview with Richard Nixon where the interviewer catches Nixon essentially saying the president can do whatever he wants and it's not illegal. And the interviewer is like, so if Nixon says something to the effect of, when the president does it, it's not illegal. It's like, what? Did Richard Nixon just say the president can do whatever he wants and it's not illegal because he's the president of the United States? That's a fucking awesome interview. That's an awesome interview. We don't get that these days. These guys need access. Because these guys need access, they toe a particular line. If they're antagonistic towards that particular politician or their interest, that politician doesn't show up on their show. They sell themselves for access. Meaning whatever they do, they're limited by the fact that they need something from these people. So, yeah, we don't get that anymore. Dax Jacobs. So everything is a false flag now. You are so worried that no one fools you. You're fooling yourself 100% of the time. Yes, agreed. I agree, Dax. This is one of those things I disagree with Debbie on. When Debbie and I talked, I asked her, where's the floor? And I didn't ask the question well. I didn't phrase it well at all. I was trying to get to something, even though I couldn't articulate the question all that well. But it was a Joker quote, where the Joker kind of, Batman was holding on to him, and he was making this point like, you know, reality is like gravity. You take one step and you're, you know, on the weeds. Joker is right. Joker said, people think the Joker was crazy. Joker was just super sane, if that makes sense. If you don't believe that if nothing exists, or if there is no God above, then there is no purpose. Your purpose can be whatever your purpose you want it to be. Nothing matters to you. Nothing matters. You yourself define what your reality is, meaning the Joker could define whatever reality he wanted. In his case, he was super sane. He understood that the things that people wrap themselves around was just culture. They weren't real. His life was dedicated to showing the fact that that shit wasn't real. He did it in the most horrendous and disgusting ways, but that was his goal. Part of the point that he made to them is, look, if you don't know what's true and if you don't know what's real, where do you put your stake in the ground? How do you feel the walls if you don't necessarily know where the walls are? Like, meaning, how do you orient yourself into reality in that way? I understand that what the DNC did was fucking duplicitous and they can't be trusted. Fair enough. I understand that the country engages itself in behaviors that are duplicitous and that lies to its citizenry. So when Obama comes and says, hey, we don't have that many people killed in these terrorist strikes, he's lying. He was killing civilians left and right. He just didn't, he was using language to obfuscate from the number of civilians that he was murdering when he was doing those drone strikes. They were using language to obfuscate from the number of countries that we were in all across the United States, all across the world. It's like 70% of the countries around the globe. When the sarin gas attack hit, and everybody accused the Syrian government of being the one that did the sarin gas attack, Seymour Hersh comes out with an article saying, look, this is not necessarily the government itself. We have evidence, strong evidence, that there were elements of terrorist organizations that was porting this stuff out and had access to it. Now, he had to publish that in another country because the articles in the United States wouldn't allow him to publish that in the States. But he publishes a story. It's a bombshell story, even though people just paid no mind to it and said, Syrian government did it, Syrian government did it, Syrian government did it. Propaganda. That's no different than Russian state TV or Chinese state TV or North Korea state TV. They essentially run the propaganda. Reality didn't matter. Competing interests didn't matter. In this case, that was used as a pretext to try to get the United States involved into a larger conflict in Syria. Hillary Clinton was going to take office and put a missile defense shield in Syria. Didn't matter that Russia said if you shoot down one of our jets or one of Syria's jets, we're in a larger conflict. We're in a war. Didn't matter. Arrogance. Bravado. I understand that your reality, for the most part, has been subjected to political and financial concerns. Meaning they found ways to monetize reality. And reality, put it in quotes. It's hard to know what's true. That's true. That's fair. False flags do happen. That's true. Governments lie. That's also true. All of those things are flat facts, and all of those things are true. So when you know that your government lies to you, you know that these political bodies lie to you, when you know that corporations, be it media or whatever else, tries to change reality in a way that comports with their economic self-interest, with their pockets, when you know that, and a story comes out, your first instinct is, are they telling me the truth? There's nothing wrong with that bias. There's nothing wrong with looking at this stuff as being skeptical. You should look at this stuff as being skeptical. Now, the catch becomes, when you accept that people lie, when you accept that media, when you accept that politicians, when you accept that all of these guys have a bias and things that they want to accomplish and they're willing to lie to you in order to accomplish it, where do you put your stake in the ground? How do you find your level of reality? How do you find what's real? It's not the easiest thing in the world. Now, claiming everything is a false flag, my first thought becomes, what do you get out of it being a false flag? Nothing's going to take place with regards to guns. And anything that they wanted to do in regards to legislation or something that they wanted to pass, they didn't need to kill 80-some people to do that. It's like everything, it just seems like everything's, anything that happens and everything that happens gets this label of, oh, that's a false flag, oh, that's not real, oh, something, whatever. I didn't care about the Las Vegas thing because ultimately I didn't think anything was going to come of the Las Vegas thing. Whether or not the investigators got the story wrong or not, that's possibly true. Incompetence happens. Whether or not it's one of those situations where everything that they say is not necessarily everything that took place and there were anomalies and everything else, all those things may be true. It takes a second question, though, whether or not it was done intentionally through some other agency, some aspect of government itself that's getting involved in doing this. Usually when those things take place, they take place for ends. We have this issue, and now we need to give more powers to some organization in order to resolve this particular issue that we ourselves have created or we ourselves have conjured. What's the legislation? What's the law? What's the thing that's going to be changed after Vegas? You have a Republican House, Republican Senate, Republican Supreme Court, Republican President. The moment that took place, the president was like, this is not the time to talk about gun changes. Congress, this is not the time to talk about gun changes. You're awash in guns. You have as many guns as people. You have multi-shootings. You can call them, you have multi-person shootings and massacres and murders. Every day, almost. Is it completely inconceivable that on some random day, just on some statistical blip, that somebody in a country that's awash in guns takes one of those guns and flips out? I would argue that from a probabilistic standpoint, it would happen at some point. So this idea of it being a false flag, I think it's dangerous thinking to believe that each and everything that takes place is a false flag. That's all. And I think there's a certain amount of confirmation bias of looking for those things to back up the idea that it's a false flag. Doesn't mean that false flags don't happen. They do. Doesn't mean that everything that takes place is. Skeptical. What are the people trying to accomplish based upon the tragedy that took place? That's what I ask. That's what I fundamentally ask. If it's this particular tragedy is used as a proxy to push forward XYZ, then yes, I'll start looking at the tragedy a little bit more intently. If it's this tragedy took place and people are moving on and acting as if nothing took place, okay, that's different. Tragedies happen. That's all. Debbie sent me, I don't think she would mind me saying this. She sent me a message, and she just said, look, it feels like I'm screaming in the forest on this one. It's a harken back to a reference that I made before. And if you would like to see information associated with this, I think this is a false flag. Take a look at it. And I said, yes, I'm open to it, because I like Debbie. You know, whether I agree with it or not, doesn't really matter. There are people I can disagree with completely and still like who they are, because I respect where they're coming from. Yes, send me the information. I haven't had the chance to look through the information. I'm going to look through it. But I have to be honest. This sounds callous. But for what I want to accomplish politically, Las Vegas doesn't apply. This country is awash in guns. This country is okay with being awash in guns. This country is massacres all the time. It is fucking terrifying. The country seems to be perfectly okay with being awash in guns and dealing with one massacre after the next. The country's okay with it. Doesn't thrill me. I think these people are maniacs. I think this idea that you're walking around and people think it's perfectly okay to have guns, and you know, I think there's something fundamentally wrong with the people in the society if they feel so threatened and terrified and so small and weak that they need this weapon on them at all times. Something wrong with your society. It's not indicative of the gun itself, it's indicative of the country itself. J. Scott, not apples to oranges, apples and bacon. I don't know what the context. Robert Pouquet Ray. Also, consistently twisting reality can lead to not relying on the information before them. Yeah, agree. But this is kind of my point. This is why I'm empathetic towards it. Because they twisted reality to this degree, because you have all of these factions that push for a version of reality, people look at this and say, I don't know what's real. Those people aren't crazy for looking at this saying, I don't know what's real. Those people are rational as rational could be. They're just stuck with this reality of these people lie to suit their interests. if I know that they lied to suit their interests, is it possible that this particular story that I myself can't necessarily touch, that I myself am not on the ground looking at, that I myself wasn't necessarily at, is it possible that they're getting this wrong? That they're doing this for some other ends? That's not crazy at all. That's consistent with the way politicians behave. I just don't necessarily buy in this case. But they're not crazy for thinking that way. Las Vegas is out of the news in a week. We are numb. J. Scott, yes. Yes. When they did weapons of mass destruction, that was under the pretext of getting us into a war with Iraq. The sarin gas thing was under the pretext of getting us involved further into Syria. Now, the thing is, they didn't necessarily need that to get us involved in Syria, seeing as, you know, Obama has already been paying terrorists to undermine the Syrian government. Why do you need a sarin gas strike? Now, mind you, they would use it. They would use it as a pretext to do strikes. They would use it as a pretext to get more involved, all that stuff. I just don't know what this would be used as a pretext for. That's all. Jenny Lynn, that's false and disingenuous to claim that anyone who believes an event is a false flag is wanting it to be one because of confirmation bias. That assumes a lot about a great many different people. I don't think that's what I said. I think that's not what I said. At least that's not what I meant. I don't think people are crazy for looking at their world and saying, I don't know if this is true. I don't think that's crazy one iota. I think one event after another have pushed those people to get that particular perspective of, I'm not taking their word for it. I don't believe them. I'm not taking their word for it. They're not crazy for doing that. They're not crazy at all. That's just kind of my point, Jen. It's sane as sane can be to look at a reality and say these people have lied for God knows how long about all sorts of things. And these people have motives for one thing after the next. And they're trying to shape reality to comport with their motives. I don't think it's crazy to look at the world and say, okay, I don't know what's true. I don't know what's true. Now, just as human beings, confirmation bias just kind of works in that way. That's not necessarily saying those people are wrong. That's not saying those people are disingenuous. It's just saying in this particular case, I don't believe everything is a false flag. At least not this one. There are false flags. This is kind of what I'm getting at. I don't want to get this perspective of that I'm trying to say that everything is, you know, the way they say things are. I don't believe that in the least. But if we're talking about this specific case in Las Vegas, different question. That's a different question. Let's see. Dax supposedly X. Jenny Lynn, how did you learn it was false flag? What was your source of information? Good question. It's kind of my point, man. We're awash in data. How do you choose the data that you go with? Because it is a choice. Like when you make a choice, people think that they make choices based off, you know, rational, logical deduction. No, nothing could be further from the truth. Oftentimes, they have an emotional response to something, and their intellect goes along with the direction of their emotions. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that some people can't pull themselves back from the brink and ignore some of the emotional components, but that's usually where that goes. You have information saying one thing is true. You have information saying something else is true. How are you choosing which information you're going to buy? This is kind of what I mean when I say confirmation bias. You're stuck in this quagmire of ambiguity. So yeah, the Vegas thing, I didn't see one way or the other because there was no way to confirm one way or the other. It's like either I believe it or disbelieve it. Neither one gets me closer to the truth. Nor did anything take place as a repercussion from it that I needed to pay attention to. So that's why I looked at it. If you are actually interested in looking at the evidence that many of us have been combing through from day one, Dax, I'd be more than happy to send it to you. And look, Jen, I am going to look at the information that Debbie sent me, by the way. I'm going to look at it. Kathleen Dury, I was very suspect that the media knew everything so soon. All except motive. Local police said multiple shooters and nothing. No casino videos. Something is up, Jamal. Look, I don't have this belief that these guys get it right. Perfectly right. That's not my belief at all. These guys come out with a statement saying XYZ took place and then later on have to change what took place. They're trying to give you up-to-date information. It's just so happened that that up-to-date information is often not necessarily the most accurate. So fair enough. I don't think I came down on this thing that says I believe everything that they're telling me. That wasn't my position. My position is I don't know. And not just I don't know. My position is I don't believe that everything that takes place is false flag. Meaning I don't necessarily believe this is a false flag, even though I will look at the information that I was sent. So that's fair. Snork Y2K. If we only have 5 times the amount of shootings as Norway, why do they call mass shootings as going completely Texan? If we only have 5 times the amount of shootings as Norway, why do they call mass shootings as going completely Texan? I don't understand that one. If we only have as many 5 shooters, but 5 times is a large number. That's massive. You're talking about Western countries. Why are we having this many people murdering each other? James Wilkes, shifting timelines regarding the shooting. Gardenome, I'm voting for the Doves in 2020. God damn it, right, Gardenome. Kathleen Derry, Jenny has no proof and neither do any of us, but something is wrong. That's all I can say. Kathleen Derry, I agree. Info is wrong from the media. I agree. I agree. This is what I mean, Jenny. I don't want you to think that I'm trying to, browbeat or dismiss. Further, nothing could be further from the truth. But I'm stuck with ambiguity, and I'm stuck with this thing of, is this important to me? Does that make sense? Like, of all the things that I need to interact with and all the things I want to talk about from a media standpoint, what are the things that are important or vastly important to me? I think Las Vegas was a tragedy. I think that the people who are doing the case may have got elements of that case wrong, particularly when they're trying to be up to the date and all this other stuff. Media often gets things wrong. But does that mean that it's a false flag? That's where you lose me at it. But again, I understand the distrust. So don't get me wrong. There's reason to be distrustful. This idea of just kind of taking what people tell you is, at this point, does not apply. Kathleen Derry, thank you, Jamal. It's up for grabs. Jenny Land J. Dax Jacobs, are the fires in California false flags too? I agree with Dax. This is what I mean. Like, you can make this case that where does your reality? Where do you put your stake in the ground for reality at that point? You can say that everything is a fake. Everything is a trick. Everything is a scam. And you can find reasons and justifications to make up the fact that all of those things are scams and tricks and false flags and everything else. It's like, where do you put your stake in the ground? When you take that first step off the ledge, just on the ether. I'm stuck with this idea of I don't know. Because I'm stuck with this idea of ambiguity and I don't know, the amount of time I engage in dealing with those thoughts purely is dependent upon what's taking place. If I was there in California and I needed to put out a wildfire, I'm putting on a firehead, I'm trying to put out a wildfire, I would discuss the merits of whether it's a false flag after the fact. That type of thing. It's just your competing priorities. California often gets fires. Is somebody going to say that each year is a false flag because California wants to do something? I don't know. Garden Gnome, exactly. I simply disagree, and my intention is not to be disrespectful to you or Debbie Jen. Exactly. I agree. Wilkins heard something about selling more expensive backscatter machines, metal detectors. Garden Gnome, overall, my position is similar to Jamal. In the big picture, while tragic, Las Vegas is not relevant. Agreed. Hey, you. Hi, Jamal doesn't, but buries his head sometimes. Jamal doesn't, but buries his head sometimes. I don't know what that means. Jamal doesn't? And for the record, this chat room is healthy debate, no trolling, no hate. Oh, I agree. My chats never have trolling or debate. It's usually this open, honest conversation. I love it. Honestly, if it was, I probably wouldn't be here. Like, if it was one of those things where the chat just devolved into shittiness and name calling, I wouldn't be here. I love the fact that my people actually have debates and earnest debates where they respect one another when they're giving their opinions. I love it. Fucking love it. One of my favorite parts. Jenny, we should not conflate Las Vegas with other events. Agreed. Civil disobedience. The Earth being a globe is a false flag. Oh, don't be a flat earther, man. Don't be a flat earther. I'm not following Vegas like I'm following Pizzagate. It's not that I think there's something there. It's that it's too complicated with everything else going on. I can't give it my time. Fair enough. You worship me, Jeremy. Garden, no. Jenny Land, why not? Why not Garden? Yeah, man. I love the fact that you guys have good conversations. All right. I have another video that I want to do, and this one is gone for like 2 hours. So I am going to kill this, and I'm probably going to be back. yeah, I'm probably gonna be back in a few. All right, guys, thanks for showing up. Thanks for being with me for this tonight. Yeah, and just to go back to the beginning on this, Democrats are upset because we always stray from the topic, even though we dealt with the topic. Look, I think this is probably going to be my format from now on. So, starting off with dialogue and then opening up for debate and conversation. I like that format. At least when I have time, I like the format. Sometimes the videos get long, which is my concern with this. Like, some people have an issue clicking on videos that are longer and everything else, so they're more apt to click on something that's 10 minutes as opposed to 2 hours. Fuck it, we're having fun. Videos aren't being monetized anyway, so it doesn't matter. So this is probably going to be the format from now on. Open discussion, or making my position, and then an open discussion. It's always strays, and I know it's going to stray, but that's fine. Democrats are upset that Bernie Sanders left. And just, once again, to go back to some of the commentary from Democrats, because this is immensely funny to me, like nobody's business. Let's see the Democrats comment on Bernie Sanders leaving, just as an out, because it's funny to me. And it's Democrats' response to Bernie Sanders not registering as a Democrat when he runs in Vermont.
Silly punks. Batman owns the night. Now taste fear. You wait, what? Oh God! Oh, my back just snapped like a pack of uncooked spaghetti. Oh, you just walk up and break my back without saying a word. Oh, boo! Boo on you, sir!
Boo on you, sir! Boo on you, sir! And here's the last Democrat.
Hey Trent, you want some ice cream? You don't want that shit. Hey Trent, you want some ice cream? You don't want that shit.
Oh God, it's awesome, it's awesome, it's awesome. Want some ice cream? Bernie Sanders, are you gonna run as a Democrat? No. Every time they open their mouth, how dare you not run as a Democrat? How dare you not run as a Democrat? Or, how dare you call yourself a Democrat? How dare you call yourself a Democrat? Or how dare you run as a Democrat? You can't have it both ways. Can't have it both ways. I will leave it at that, because to me that is fucking infinitely funny. And the robot chicken thing of them breaking their back, and it's like, boo on you, sir. Boo on you. I use that one because I'm making this point that they want him as a Democrat. He breaks their back just by standing there. That scene with Bane breaking the back of Batman, Bernie Sanders just standing on stage with a Democrat, is that scene. When they're bitching and moaning, and you see all the stuff in the Washington Post, and you see these people writing articles on Salon, when you see them writing stuff in the New York Times, when you see them going after Bernie Sanders in the Daily Beast or MSNBC or Joy Reid, all these people, when you see them going after Bernie Sanders, think of that kid screaming when his ice cream got shot out. Meow! Meow! That's what they're doing. That's what they're doing. Fucking amazing. Burning bus. I'll leave it at that. Alright guys, if you enjoy the content, feel free to share, like, or write, and subscribe. And of course, you can always support through Patreon. And I guess through Super Chat at this point too. I probably should amend my my last outro. Alright guys, thanks for showing up. Thanks for being with me. Have a good one, guys.